Good afternoon, everyone. The National Council of University Research Administrators, Region 7, Professional Education and Development Committee is pleased to welcome you to today's presentation, our very first free offering to our region. The purpose of the PEDC is to support professional development activities for regional members and provide a broad range of educational services to ensure that all regional members have access to professional development programming. My name is Ashley Staley, and it is my pleasure to serve you as Chair of Region 7, a committee member of the PEDC and your facilitator for today's webinar. Please note that today's call is being recorded. This presentation will last up to 60 minutes. Whether you are using audio from your computer or phone, please be sure your line is muted during the presentation. If you have questions or comments, please utilize the chat feature or raise your hand. I will be monitoring the chat box throughout the presentation. As stated earlier, this is our first offering from the PEDC, so there may be some challenges to work out. Please be sure to complete the survey at the end of today's session. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our presenters for today. Liz Grinstead, Senior Research Administrator at Colorado State University, and Beth Kingsley, Grants Contract Manager at Denver Health. At this point, I'll turn the program over to Liz to get us started.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. Thank you for joining us today for a robust discussion on Orchid, or Orchid if you're a Lord of the Rings fan, and the implementation of Orchid, the why, how, and potential pitfalls. And we're really excited to have you all on today to help guide Region 7 on any best practices, learn more about Orchid, and to sort of get together to discuss. So, as Ashley said, myself and Beth are your discussion leaders today. I am at Colorado State University, a Senior Research Administrator. Beth, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I am the Grants Contract Manager at Denver Health, and I've been there for right around 4 years now, and then I was at a university before then.
All right, so we're going to do a quick poll, and hopefully the polling feature works. If it doesn't, oh, yes, it does. This is so exciting. So have you ever heard of Orchid? Is your first question. Got some polls going on. All right, looks like most people have heard of Orchid. Good. That's a good sign. Yes, so we have about 86% have heard of Orchid, and we have about 14% who have not. So for those who have not heard of Orchid, welcome. We will be talking about it and why you should want to familiarize yourself with it. And for our second poll, have you ever helped an investigator register for an Orchid? And hold on while we get this polling question number 2 up. Hold, please. And if it works so well the first time, of course, it's not going to work as well the second time. Trisha, anything? Oh, there we go. There we go. Now it is up. So again, a yes or no question. Have you ever helped an investigator register for an Orchid? And now it says it's closed again. There we go. Here we go. All right, looks like it's mostly the opposite. Most people have not helped an investigator register for an Orchid. Welcome. We will be helping as much as possible to sort of get through some steps, share some really great resources that both Region 7 and the research administrators as a whole have come together and put some great resources out. And all those will be linked at the end of this presentation, and this presentation will be available on the Region 7 website under announcements until we have a more permanent place for that. And if you have any questions about where to get resources, both Beth and my contact information will be at the end of this presentation as well. So what is Orchid? So Orchid stands for Open Researcher and Contributor Identifier. So this is going to be a unique identifier that's going to be a lifelong identifier that will distinguish your researcher from any other researcher, and it automatically links to all their professional activities. So it's going to be a career-long identifier. So if you have graduate students, undergraduate students who are thinking they're going to be researchers for a long time, this is the best way to go about doing that, is to get them registered for this unique identifier.
So there's actually there's some good reasons to participate in Orchid, really no matter where you are in the research community. So of course, this really benefits the actual researchers because it's a really great way to keep track of all of their publications or whatnot they're involved with. Instead of just trying to identify by name, especially when you have really common ones, by having that one ID, there's one central repository that they can go to look at everything they've been involved with, which is really important for their career. This is starting to become a sponsor requirement. So NIH, right now, they only are going to start wanting it for K awards and T awards, so career and training awards. But the expectation is that they'll expand that requirement to all grants for all investigators wanting to, it's a requirement for the proposals themselves. So if right now someone wants to submit for a K or T award, then they should be working on getting that Orchid ID. There's another benefit that we've discovered outside of just the proposal requirement, and that is, as an institution, if we become a member, and that way we have oversight of all of our PIs and all of their IDs, then we can start keeping track of their publications. We're trying to track that right now, but our only way of doing so is sending an email out, hopefully to everyone who might have one, saying, hey, what publications do you have and what are you working on currently? And so which is of course not a great way to track everything. So there's a really great institutional benefit if you become a member at the institution level to be able to track and help coordinate people who might be working on the same types of publications, et cetera, et cetera. Next slide, please. So Orchid, it's free. At the institution level, it's not, but for the individual registrants, it is in fact free. So that's really nice. They can link that Orchid ID with ERA Commons and other third-party systems. So it's a really great tool for researchers. There's really not a reason for them to sign up. Next slide, please.
And Beth, we actually have a question about how is tracking of publications different from my bibliography. Could you talk about that for just a second?
That's actually a good question. I'm not very familiar with my bibliography, but if someone else who is could speak to that, I would really appreciate it.
So my understanding is that my bibliography is only tracking publications and actually works with a ORCID. So the ORCID is just actually the ID itself. That way you can identify Joe Smith when all of a sudden he starts calling himself Joseph Smith or starts using Joe Smith Sr. It's just to keep track of an individual. An example could be if a female investigator gets married and takes on her spouse's name and actually changes her last name. It's to make sure that somebody who was Mary Smith is now Mary Carpenter, that they have all of her publications, all of her proposals, all of her award information under that one ID as Mary whomever. So really it's, while it does help with keeping track of publications, my publications is just solely for publications, whereas the ID is to keep track of the individual and link them then to their publications and to proposals and awards and such. So hopefully that helps to clarify.
Yes, thank you. So how do you do this? All the researcher has to do is log on to this website and register. One quick note for the researchers who are very busy and have administrators helping them, you can only register an Orchid ID for yourself. Any more questions so far? Great.
All right, now we come to the fun part of our presentation and discussion, is the discussion part. So keep your questions coming in for everyone here. Any tips that you've had with discussion, or I'm sorry, with registering any investigators, helping them through the process. From what I've seen on clicking on the link, it's actually fairly painless process, and Beth can definitely speak more to that. I think she's actually helped someone register. So for the 93% of you who have not helped register, this will hopefully be able to get you a step in the right direction. So while we're doing this this discussion part, I'm going to go ahead and go to a bunch of our links here. And some of the, and again, this will be available on our website, so you don't have to scramble to copy the link down and everything. But once our recording is up on the website, we'll also put this up on the website as well.
And one thing I did want to say, because I've been working on our membership agreement for the institution level, and one of the things we've run into is as far as terms go, and I don't know if any other institution has dealt with this, and if so, I'd like your feedback. The documents themselves are fine, but they embed online terms that include indemnification and state of New York governing law and binding arbitration, all things that as an institution we can't accept, and I know a lot of others can't too. So if someone else has encountered this, I'd really like to get some feedback as to how you've dealt with it.
All right, so our first question that came in is from Deborah. Does Orchid have informatics graphing ability similar to Colorado profiles to map relationships between investigators? Anyone in the audience have any experience with this that they want to share? You're allowed to unmute. I believe in you. All right, Beth, Trisha, Ashley, do you guys know the answer to this question about informatics graphing ability?
It's not something we've looked into so far.
Well, we can certainly provide some follow-on information for this.
Right. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, I haven't seen any infographics in it. I know that you can share with others that information, adding all of your affiliations and emails and stuff, but I don't know about graphing features. So that's something we can definitely look into. And what we can do is, in addition to this recording, pull down the questions from the Zoom chat and then provide some feedback and follow up there on the regional website.
Wonderful. Our next question is from Claire. She's interested in setting up all her faculty in her department on Orchid in order to track publications and funding, and is asking for experience with this and the best approach. So Beth, do you want to take a stab at it, approach and your experience with setting up investigators?
Well, I have not actually assisted an investigator with this. I'm
lying. Sorry. I lied to everyone. I apologize.
But I think that we could probably provide some good guidance.
And that first link actually from University of Colorado Boulder from Christy Winsek is a great link that has been shared on the Res Admin website or on the Res Admin listserv. And it is a step-by-step detailed instructions that you can review and walk through. That's actually posted on our website right now. under the announcement page. We have a link to that. It was in our last newsletter as well for anyone who has linked to that before. And Christy did a wonderful job in doing that. And the University of Colorado Boulder's website on the Science NV or Science CV, Science, however you're supposed to say that, and Orchid has been really, really helpful for our community.
Right.
I'm
And
just,
Christy,
yeah,
oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
As you're saying, Christy just chimed in there on the chat too. So I'm wondering though, is the step-by-step guide for individuals and not institutions, I would assume?
That is correct. The process for memberships for an institution is very different. And I see someone from POP's iPad saying that they're part of a consortium managed by Lyrasis for their institutional membership, which is the same group that we're going through and same terms that we ran into. So I'm curious.
Just so everyone knows, your institution does not need to be a member in order to have an Orchid ID. There's no, if your institution is not wanting or not able to do an institutional membership, your investigators should still have an Orchid ID, but they can do that without having an institutional membership.
That's true. That's a very important clarification. We've decided as an institution to follow this approach because, as I mentioned, we're trying to use it to help track publications for our researchers. But it does include a small fee and other agreements and whatnot. But without that, any of the researchers can still register.
This is Diane Smith from Boise State University, and we're actually working with our library to track these publications. And we have ScholarWorks at our library right now, and they're working together so that we can benefit from the library collecting this information for us.
Hi, Doug. Love your iPad name.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, we have, for the past couple of years, we've partnered with folks in our library to get the word out and have faculty register their ORC IDs. We are also currently working with Digital Measures, which is our faculty activity system, to have them work with Science CV and Orchid to get a two-way communication going with them. Right now, we have a one-way link so that faculty can register their ORC ID and import their publications into Digital Measures. But right now, we don't have a way to export stuff like their bio sketches and things that they can create inside of Digital Measures. So we've asked them to work with Orchid, and they haven't had much traction yet.
Hey, Doug, have you had to help anyone set up an ORC ID yet?
Yeah, I've done just a couple.
Okay.
Doing workshops for Digital Measures just to get them to sign up and set up their publication import link.
Any tips and tricks on that you've noticed when you're in the system?
Not
or is
really.
It pretty painless?
Yeah, it's pretty painless and seems pretty straightforward. You know, once people just start going through the process, I think the biggest hurdle is getting them to actually go there and do it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we all know that this will be just one more thing. And then on top of the Science CV, it will be another thing. I mean, these will at least link together and start talking to each other for all of the requirements that are coming on board for our federal partners and our federal agencies. But the big thing is going to be convincing your investigators from, you know, your very low level graduate students and people who are just coming on board in their science career to your, you know, your very long-term tenured faculty to get this all together.
Right. Yeah, I have a hard time getting them to fill out their Digital Measures profile. Those.
Yeah.
So
the grad students do pretty well because the library leans on them, I think, as they're working towards their dissertations.
Doug, then, so there's no way to kind of bulk load faculty into this. It's individual registration. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. I mean, a few years ago, 5 years ago, I guess, Ron and I were working with Pat and Pat Burns in the library wanted to, just mass load everybody. And Orchid said, no, you can't do that. We really need the individuals to actually do that themselves.
Okay. Do you know if once you have that institutional membership and some of your researchers have registered, do you know if there's a way you can export that information?
That has been extremely difficult trying to get that out of them. So, you know, we can see sort of numbers, but we can't see individual things. So I need to get back online with my lyricist folks and try and figure out how we actually do that. Because the website wasn't I mean, I'm a little bit techie, but not 100% techie with APIs and all that kind of stuff. So that has been a little bit difficult for us. We used to collect that information inside of Digital Measures, and I could produce a report that showed where people were if they had entered that data. But now it's all in Orchid, and I'm having trouble getting it out.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. Have you found it a useful approach for investigators to explain that by building this now would help save them time later, at least in theory?
Yeah, in theory, that's what we're trying to do. We did a little training session in our. We have a little professional development process in January. We did one 2 years ago. Ron and I and Dawn in the library tried to explain that to them. And if we can make this link work with Digital Measures, they can create their bio sketches and edit their bio sketches, create multiple bio sketches, all that kind of stuff. We actually import for them all their grant information so they could do their current and pending. We could create a report that would do that for them as well. So yeah, we'll ultimately hopefully save them time once they make that link and create their Orchid profiles.
Great, thanks, Doug. Hey, Christy, have you had any success in messaging at Boulder? What have you been doing since you've been putting out such great guidance?
We have been reaching out to campus. We've done 5 or 6 on-campus training sessions. They each last for about an hour. They cover the registration and upload of information on Orchid. They're also given the instruction packet. We have found that since PIs are in very different places as far as populating their Orchid, it's not a great use of our time to have them actually do the registration for Orchid while we're there, because too many people end up sitting around doing nothing. And then also doing a full science CV training at the same time. And what we're really encouraging our PIs, since so many of our PIs are on NSF, is that yes, you can do science CV without Orchid, but if you keep your Orchid populated, it makes the science CV, which is now required, so much easier for them. So we're really pushing that aspect of it. I'm starting to see PIs who are coming through using the science CV BioSketch Builder, and they are basing it on their Orchid ID, and it's working beautifully, I have to say. And those who have actually taken the leap love it.
Awesome, that's great news to hear. Has anyone else who has a department with several PIs who may or may not have registered for accounts yet? Do you guys have any plans on how you're thinking about going about and getting your PIs together? Are you thinking more of these like big group sessions or one-on-one and tailored? I bet it's really dependent on your departments, but has anyone come up with a game plan?
This is Diane at Boise State again. We're building a task force right now because NSF is going to require you use Science CV for your bio sketches starting in June. So we're working with the library and we're going to start offering classes. We were hoping, I mean, everything's changed now, but we were hoping to start doing that into April, 1st of May, and opening it up to large groups of people.
We had talked about doing that at CSU as well, and we were going to target spring break, but we learned one, faculty aren't here at spring break, and then the virus hit. So I guess we will be circling back around once we are all back on campus.
So for those who have helped an investigator, what is your #1 trick or #1 piece of advice that you would give to everyone else who hasn't, since most of us haven't registered for either ourselves if we are also in that realm, or for others even though you're not supposed to register for others, but at least helped register for others. Anyone have any number one tips?
Don't wait to the last minute. If it's a requirement on one of your, training awards or K awards. I did have reports back from some faculty after we did some initial blogs on this, that one of our faculty actually had a very difficult time with the process. I think it was more with Science CV than with the ID, but she was definitely having some issues. So of course, advertising to faculty, letting them know about any deadlines that are coming, when they're going to have to use these tools, and providing what assistance we can.
Thanks, Trisha. Anyone else have any tips or tricks that they've had? Any successes with sitting one-on-one versus in a group? I know it seems like the best way to get about this is with a group, but some of our faculty might not always be the most computer oriented as well, or it's hard to get them to a computer. I know a lot of the people that I work with in the college I support, vet med and biomed, they're not usually, in the lab versus at their computer. So getting them a dedicated time, it might be, making an appointment with them in order to set it up.
I've done a couple of workshops as well, and I've worked with our OSP and with administrative staff to try to train them how to do it. So it's not just me training faculty or training a group of faculty members, but actually have administrative staff that can support as well.
Wonderful, great idea.
So was that something you just kind of decided on your own? Because one thing, this is something that we wonder, should, this really be a central effort? Should it come out of sponsored programs? Should it be more, at the college level? That's kind of been kicked around, but it seems like it typically comes back to sponsored programs, which is why we've been doing some advertising and talking about getting some groups together in a computer room to assist faculty.
Well, I'm set up a little bit differently. I actually work in a department. I'm in a core facility, and I've been the one training our OSP and other departments of getting the word out. And I think it's because I support people with getting their submissions done, getting their preliminary documents and stuff put together. So I've ended up kind of doing it the reverse from the department side going up. And then since we started doing that, the OSP has taken it on more seriously, and the libraries have, because I don't think anybody really recognized that it was critical that people get on until kind of the last minute.
Naturally.
That's excellent of you to take that lead.
So it sounds like from some of the colleges or some of the universities that have been reporting in, linking up with your library, if you haven't done so, would be a good first step for those who, might not have heard of it or might not have anyone registered yet. Linking up with any other systems you have currently for tracking publications or submissions as well, seeing who are your key players in that if you're needing to assemble a task force. So thanks everyone for sharing those tips so far. Anyone else have any ideas or how they plan on tackling this that they want to group think?
I know we did find out through our contacts with Digital Measures that Science CV, the government folks, aren't allowed to deal with private software companies.
Oh, that's interesting.
So we tried to have them go directly to trying to create a link between our Digital Measures data that we were collecting that would be useful and right into Science CV, but they said they couldn't deal with Watermark/Digital Measures, that it had to come from Orchid. Well, that put a damper on things.
I know, way to go, Doug. As per usual, Doug has silenced the conversation.
Yeah, that's me.
I wouldn't mind circling back around to the very first question. Actually, the bibliography is super important to have completed as well, because that feeds right into RPPR for reporting at the end of people's grants. So really they have to do both Orchid and the bibliography. And I don't think right now there's any way around kind of doing both of those things.
So I have a question as far as institutions that have their own system-to-system submission. We have Cayuse 424. And since this is a requirement for NIH applications for certain types, are you having any issues getting that information in your own system to send in? Do you have to go through grants.gov instead?
I know CSU doesn't do that many system-to-system applications just because it's so limited on the quality system on what you can actually do as system-to-system. It has to be so precise on, like, it can't like have any subs and it can't have this or that, or I've never done a system-to-system myself because when I was supporting the college during proposal submission, their opportunities weren't ever system-to-system compliant. So I'm not sure if CSU has done any with that. Trisha, have you heard of anyone doing that?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Do you know, Liz, if maybe not, if I know Denida uses Cayuse a bit, right, for the large proposal stuff that they're doing?
I didn't know we had Cayuse at all. That's news to me.
I thought they were using that for the limited submission stuff. Man, I could be wrong. I mean, I'm only on the periphery of that, so don't quote me.
I might quote you.
You can blame me if you go and talk to Denida. So,
Well, I'm on quarantine for the next 2 weeks, so I can't talk to anyone.
yeah, I guess I mean that virtually.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, I'm sitting in my art studio right now, so home for the foreseeable future.
Okay, thanks. That's one of the reasons we were looking to see if we could bulk export so that we could auto upload these into Cayuse 424 at some point. So hopefully we can figure that out.
That sounds interesting. Yeah, if you guys do, I'd like to know how that happened.
So just a clarification there, Doug, we use InfoReady for,
okay.
for managing our limited submissions.
See, I shouldn't talk about things I don't know about, right?
Then you would never talk
so many
at all.
systems. We have so many systems, right, that don't
Exactly.
necessarily. So while we use the InfoReady for reviewing internally limited submissions, we still, for the complex proposals, like you said, we're still submitting them through our quality system.
Through the regular process?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, going back to Diane's question about the bibliography, anyone have any more tips or anything they want to discuss around bibliography and everything? Either uploading, getting everything together, partnering with your other campus constituents to get that information together? Or Diane, did you get mostly what you needed, or did you have an area of discussion you wanted to talk about in particular?
Sorry, I was commenting on someone else's question from the very beginning. I just wanted to make sure that everybody recognized that the bibliographies have to be done as well, not just Orchid ID,
right,
because it's a crossover of information. And so people keep asking us, how come I have to do both? Well, you have to do both because Orchid ID is required, but the bibliography is what actually feeds into their report for NIH reporting when they get done with their grant. So they need to stay on top of both, really, I think.
Awesome, great. Yeah, thanks for reminding everyone of that. That's a really good point. Just making sure that it's not just a do once and forget about it. It's a constant updating and making sure all of your things are linked and looking at it and ensuring things are correct. And once everything gets together more so, then it'll be a lot smoother. But that first initial is going to be a little bit of a hump to get over.
We had an additional question come in through the chat. Has anyone here had the need to function as a delegate for their PIs?
Not on Orchid ID, but I have on Science CV, so I'm not sure if they're asking what the question is directed towards.
It didn't say exactly. Perhaps the participant would like to add more. I've done it on Orchid as well as Science CV. So would the participant who asked the question, you also mentioned that you've done this for your department and there are a few tricks. Would you like to share?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Now we can.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
There we go. Sorry. It's the first time doing it on the laptop, trying to get it to work.
No worries.
My name's Elena. I'm a research project manager at Denver Health. I have done some help with my PIs with RPBRs and stuff like that. And I found to have all the systems kind of talking within ERA Commons and Orchid, they have to make a delegation in Orchid and make me a trusted individual. And that means that I can go in and I can also help them maintain their Orchid profiles. I have to have my own Orchid account before I can do that. And then when I've been over in ERA Commons and dealing with stuff with my bibliography, I believe there's a tab in there for Orchid. And even if you're a delegate in ERA Commons, they have to go in and they have to go into their own ERA Commons instance and connect their Orchid account themselves for that to function. Because if I'm in a delegate session, I still can't go in and do that. I don't know if this makes any sense. I have a checklist that I'd be willing to share with everybody of kind of what people can walk through as a PI if they want to fully delegate things. Yeah, checklists. I'd be happy to send it to the administrators and maybe that'll make more sense.
That would be wonderful.
There's some additional things that the PI has to do to make all the delegations work so that you can then go in as an administrator and make everything talk to each other. And your own delegations are limited until they go and do these extra steps.
Awesome. Thank you for that information. Are you okay if we, when we get these checklists, if we post them to the Region 7 website as well?
That would be fine.
Great.
No
Thank you
problem.
very much.
You're welcome.
Everyone loves checklists, I'm pretty sure. So it's always good to have.
It's a sad statement about us.
All right. As we're coming closer to the top of the hour, we have about 22 minutes left. Does anyone have any questions or comments they would like to do at this time? Anything that they had a question about that they haven't seen answered? Any other tips or tricks?
I would like to ask a question, Liz. This is
Hi, Catherine.
Boulder. I would like to know what the effect is really in the post-award stage. We're very siloed in pre and post. And I know sometimes we have to change stuff like this on the after award has been made, but I'm trying to wrap my head around like how that's going to happen.
That's a good question. I don't know if we know the answer to all the implications on like a post-award and closeout process yet, but ensuring that when you do look at your investigator's profile in Orchid, that everything has been uploaded correctly and all the links are made correctly, but it should be following them at the pre-award stage through award into that post-award. Anyone have any experience with it coming from pre to post at this time?
I think it's just so new yet. We'll get to discover that soon.
Any other post awarders have any questions about how it's going to impact them or how it has impacted them? Any comments? Way to stump the room, Catherine. So
In the post-award world, I try to figure out.
Yeah, so right now it seems like everything on pre-award is really going to be where the focus is, and your departments and your central office making sure that your whole university is up complying with this soon-to-be requirement for probably all federal agencies. Right now, just a requirement for some and some opportunities. So just making sure you're helping support as needed, making yourself available per trainings, and we will find out more together on how this is going to impact the post-award process as it comes through. Great question though, Catherine, thank you. Anyone else have anything they would like to add for the good of the group?
If there isn't anything, I just would like to take a moment, since we've got Catherine and Trisha both on the call, to introduce you all to our co-chairs of the Professional and Education Development Committee. So we've got Catherine O'Hare. Catherine is a grant officer at the University of Colorado Boulder. And then Trisha Callahan, who's now turned her video back on, our Senior Research Education and Information Officer at Colorado State University. So thank you both very much for heading up this committee and getting our first free webinar off the ground.
Woohoo!
Really appreciate it.
You're most welcome, and sorry about the polling difficulties. As we move forward with other discussions, we'll definitely have those worked out. And we actually have another very timely discussion coming up in 2 days if people are interested. While many of you are already set up to telework, given the current situation, if you're still looking for some tips, tricks, and tools, Ashley Staley at noon on Thursday will be doing another webinar, and Ashley was really the lead at our institution for putting together a policy and getting our office, the Office of Sponsored Programs, one of the first offices doing teleworking. So I think we were really set up to go once the virus hit. And I know, Ashley, you just did a webinar for NCURA with some colleagues, with your NCURA colleagues as well.
I did, and one of our Region 7 members, Alexa Van Delson, is also going to be joining me on Thursday to co-present on teleworking. We did do a webinar for NCURA last Thursday, which also included one of our colleagues that many of you likely know, Dennis Pathrath. But we're modifying it, and Alexa and I will be happy to present that information on Thursday. Another free webinar offered by the Region 7 PEDC. All right, Liz and Beth, did you have anything else for the presentation today?
I think just oh, hi, Beth.
Hi. No, I think we were probably going to say the same thing, to follow the link that's embedded in the PowerPoint slide, and also that got posted in the chat, to give us feedback.
Yes, and also just make sure that if you have any questions, reach out to others in your college. We're all going to get through this together. We'll have a great support system throughout everyone's universities and throughout the region. If you guys end up having any tips or tricks about registering large groups of people, we would love to hear that. Please send anything that you have to either myself or Beth or Trisha or Catherine, whoever's email you can find the fastest. And we'll link up everything that we can onto the Region 7 website. So thank you all for joining today. The slides will be available on the website along with this recording.
Okay.
So just Google NCURA Region 7.
Yeah, it's in NCURA Region VII.org. And we'll post that in the chat as well. So with that, we'll conclude today's webinar. A recording of today's webinar will be available on the NCURA Region 7 website under the announcement page. On behalf of the NCURA Region 7 PEDC, thank you for your participation in today's webinar, and a special thanks to our presenters. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you
all.
Bye.